to episode 76 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there is nothing better than hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club, where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
So, our Would You Rather today is cruel. I think. I think it's a really hard one, but the question today is reread your least favorite book once a month, or never read your favorite book again. So, we've talked about it a million times that we love rereading books that we love.
Yes.
We're big rereaders in this.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This one makes it super hard. Do
Really?
you have any opinions?
I don't think this is hard at all.
Oh, really?
I would 1,000,000% rather reread my least favorite book once a month than give up my favorite book.
I know, but, like, have you ever had months where, like, you can barely read a book?
Yeah, but, like, I guess if we're talking reread your least favorite book, like, that's not specifying, like, format. So, like, you could listen to it, and maybe you accidentally fall asleep.
Listen to it 3 times speed.
Yeah, like, I think you could, although...
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be able to name my least favorite book.
I was thinking that, too. I was like, you kind of have to have, like, something in mind.
Yeah. Like I can't...
To make the stakes real.
Yeah, I don't... I'm trying to think of, like, my least favorite book. And I mean, like, I guess would it be books that, like, maybe I didn't finish because I just wasn't into them? Like...
And would you be allowed to change it? Because I guess, like, books that you could probably find something to like in a book if you had to read it every month is the other thing. Like, I feel like if you start liking it, do you then have to change it?
Oh my god. This has me thinking now of all these, like, obscure books that I've read. And now I'm actually thinking about it. I'm remembering books that I've read that I actually really enjoy that are, like, really obscure.
Like, it would have to be a short book.
Yeah.
I'd, like, pick a children's book. This is my least favorite. Oh, you know what, actually... Is that a book? Oh. Oh my god. I had something and I lost it. I'll Love You Forever.
I Love You Forever is your least favorite book?
I hated that book.
Really?
I haven't read it
love you
since
forever.
I was a child.
I like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby, you'll be.
Yeah.
You hate that book?
I did. I haven't read it since I was a child, but I hated it.
Oh my god. Oh god. I honestly can't think of, like, there's one random book that I rented out, like, I borrowed on Libby, and I read, like, the first chapter, and I was like, no, I'm not feeling this.
Yeah. But, that's hard, too, because if I'm with Libby, you only get it after, like, so much time, and then you might not be in the mood to read it then, and, like...
Oh my god, How many books have I, like, borrowed and then left in my library and just not read them?
Exactly. Same. All the time.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I think the hardest part of this one would be picking my least favorite book.
Yeah. I mean, could I pick, like, a really not a crappy, like, maybe I'd pick Othello from Shakespeare. It's really, like, it's a downer.
Yeah.
And it's a play, so it goes real fast.
You could just watch it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Smart. It's a smart thing to do. But yeah, obviously I would have to be able to reread my favorite books, because...
Yeah.
But
can you imagine never being able to pick up your favorite book again?
No.
And, like, if we're talking about all formats, then we would have to cancel out, like... So, like, for you, if your favorite book was TOG, that means if they ever made a movie or a series, you wouldn't be able to watch that either.
Yeah.
If we're talking about being able
Which
to
might
reread.
be fine.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's maybe it would be okay because
ugh, God, yeah. But yeah, no, you'd have to.
Yeah, I would
just
totally.
Seems like like reread your favorite book once a year is doable, but some months I barely finish one book. And like some months I might not even get through one if I'm busy or if I'm like, it just seems like so much to finish it in a month.
Yeah.
I'd have no time to read anything else. Yeah. Especially if it takes you a while to get through it because you don't like it. I guess you'd eventually just be able to like read it like from memory.
Oh, do you know what? I have a least favorite book.
Yeah.
The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and everybody can hate me. No, I lied. Catcher in the Friggin' Rye. I hated that book.
I don't think I read either of those.
Hated it with a passion of 1,000 suns. I used to argue with my high school English teacher about how terrible the book was and why they were making us study it was stupid.
That's fair.
And he was like, he used to argue back to me that, like, this is a classic. And I'm like, a classic in awfulness? And you know what's even worse? I've worked with him as an adult.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, like, we are, like, we're colleagues and, like, I mean, I'm not going to say friends, but, like, you know, we're friendly. And that is what he remembers about me.
And you're like, I still hate the fucking book.
Yes, I do. And if I ever have to teach high school English again, I will not teach that book. I will avoid it at all costs. I'll pick any other book.
Yeah.
But the same thing with now, because The Outsiders is a close second. I just don't like it. And I'm going to be teaching grade 8 English, and that's normally when you do it. I literally brought home like 9 books from school that are other options that I'm reading over the summer so that I can avoid doing that book. I don't want to. I don't want to.
Don't do it. Don't force kids to read shitty books.
But like, and we're getting off on a tangent here, but I find that the issue with like school novels is that they tend to be like this like big like, I don't know, they just tend to be really like allegorical and like, you know, deep thinking and like referencing other things and, you know, saying something about society and like, you know what I mean? Like really like books that you can dissect and pull apart, which is fine. Like I understand that that's important, but a lot of times those books are boring.
Yeah.
Like the same thing, it's like they're, you know, Oscar movies. Like I personally do not find those movies entertaining. Those ones that really want you to like think about life and blah blah blah, and they're like weird.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
So like I want to pick books to study that kids will actually find entertaining and not like ones where, oh, what's the metaphor in this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. It really does make you dislike reading.
Yeah.
And like, I never thought I would, but then I remember in high school I used to be like, why? Like, this book sucks. Why are we reading this?
Yes. It's ridiculous. And this is coming from somebody who, like, both of us love books. We love, like, we're both Shakespeare fans, like.
And some classics are really good, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not like all classics are bad or anything. But
Dracula, P&P.
I love Dracula.
I know you do. But, like, you know, it's true. Even friggin', like, Oliver Twist is okay, but it is so long.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They really needed better editors.
Anyway, besides the point, tangent-wise, I would still choose to reread my least favorite book once a month in order to still have access to my favorite.
Yes, 100%. You do anything.
You do anything for your favorite book again.
Anything.
Anything, yeah.
Oh god. So just a heads up, we're not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy.
Yeah, I don't remember if they get saucy this week.
Kind of in a rapey way.
Yeah.
We don't really get into it till next week, though.
Yeah. So last week, it was our first week of A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This week it is week 2. We are reading chapters 12 to 22. And we left off last week. So essentially the whole week last week was Casteel trying to convince Poppy to marry him, and her being like, heck no. She even ran from him and tried to escape in order to do that, and then he had to rescue her because Craven attacked, and it was a whole thing. They finally agree that they're going to get married on the condition that Casteel helps Poppy get access to her brother. And he also tells her that when she is ready for a divorce, she can have one. So, but...
Which is, so funny, because...
how does she not understand the wording of that?
Yeah.
But, whatever. So, then they have to convince Alistair, this Wolven that is advisor to the king and queen. They have to try and convince him that their wedding is real, their marriage is real, and the last sort of words that Alistair says is Casteel, she's great, but do you really plan to keep her? And so then this week, right where we left off, he says, well, of course, I wouldn't be marrying her if I didn't plan on keeping her. Which is sort of like a moment for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is an but then she's like, he's only saying
I know.
Convinced. Which obviously you would think the same thing. And a lot of her feelings, I know we're in her head and I get frustrated with her. A lot of her feelings are 100% what ours would be anyway.
Yeah.
If you were actually in this situation, obviously you wouldn't think that this person loved you.
No, you're right.
But I'm still like, can't you tell?
Yeah. She's super confused because I just don't get why she's confused. Either he is telling the truth or he's lying. So why would this confuse you? You know it's one of the two.
Yeah, I think it's less confused. She's just it confuses her feelings, I think. Because she's like, it's so sweet to hear something like that. And then she's like, it's not real. But then her brain's like, it sounds real. And then her heart falls in love.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, she's like, I know that we're gonna separate after their plan. Their plan, which is stupid. Their plan, hey, I've married her, so now if you guys don't want war, give us everything we want.
Including the death of the king and king.
Yeah.
King.
Yeah.
King and queen.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the worst plan of all plans.
It's not a great plan. It's clearly they don't need to be married for this.
No!
So obviously he's getting something out of it.
Yeah.
So that should be your baseline of he obviously wants to marry her or he wouldn't have come up with this stupid plan.
And I think it makes sense they're not telling anybody about this plan at all because they know that everybody would be like, this plan sucks.
Yes.
Just ransom her already.
Well, yeah, that's what they all say, and then he rips someone's heart out.
That's true. Anyway, so Casteel then continues that, Poppy intrigued him from the first moment, and Alistair is like, oh yeah, she is pretty unique for a maiden. And, she keeps saying, oh yeah, for a maiden, and oh yeah, when she was the maiden. And, Casteel gets, really annoyed, and he tells Alistair that, if he calls her the maiden one more time, we're gonna have a problem. And do you know what, though? So, I'm obviously, like, I've read this book, and I really enjoyed Alistair the first time I read this book.
Yeah.
And the more times I read it, the more I dislike him.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I don't remember anything past this week because I haven't gotten that far yet.
But, like, I just find that, like, he's doing some subtle, like, undermining that I don't appreciate. But, like, the first time around, I don't know if it's just that I didn't notice it, or if I just, like, glossed over it, or I don't know. I notice it so much now that I can get into, like, the finer details.
Do you think that part of it is because he reminds her of Victor and you have a burning hatred for Victor now?
Could be.
Just like this.
Could be. But yeah, she does reference, however, so many times, like, oh, he reminds me of Victor. Oh, he reminds me of Victor. Oh, he's doing what Victor would do. Ugh. Anyway. So, like, obviously, like, Casteel calling Alistair out and being like, we're gonna have a problem. Alistair's like, ooh, okay. So then he, like, tells the guys at the table that came with him, like, came with his group, says, like, go get the horses ready, because we're gonna go check the roads. And, like, they all get up and go do, like, move to go, except for Niall, whatever.
I think it's Niall.
Niall.
It's not Nail. Nail with 2 L's. Nail. Maybe it is Nail.
Niall and Delano. Everybody else gets up to go, except for those two. And Casteel's like, I think you're forgetting, like, who commands who here. Because, like, I guess because Delano and Niall didn't get up, Alistair's, like, looking at them like, I just gave you an order, like, get up, go. And they're just, like, sitting there because they're like, you're not my prince. Yeah. And so Casteel has to be like, hey, Alistair, like, I think you're forgetting who rules who. And, like, and he's like, don't forget, if I were to call those guys back, they would come. And, like, the two that didn't leave, they're not going until I say they're going. So, like, I think you're forgetting. Like, don't forget who the commander is around here. So, like, there's definitely some, like, pushback here. Some, like, push and pull.
Yeah.
And, like...
Especially, like, because I think at some point, or maybe it was last week, they say he's kind of like an uncle to him and Kieran. So, it is, like, a weird situation to, like, go from being someone's uncle type figure, and then they're higher in command than you, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. I get it, but it's also like, obviously he's the prince, dude. Back off.
Yeah.
And he just ripped someone's heart out. I don't think I can state that enough. And there were people pinned to the fucking walls earlier.
Yeah.
He
is not above getting his hands dirty. Yeah. So, like, Alistair's like, oh, of course I didn't forget, like, being all, like, you know, coy about it, we'll say. But then he asks, like, can I speak freely? And then sort of, like, insinuates that maybe Poppy shouldn't be there for the conversation. And Casteel's like, she can stay. Like, whatever you say in front of me, you can say in front of her. And he sort of, like, references how, like, he sort of, like, brings up the ransom idea, and Poppy's like, I know about that, like, FYI, like, you don't have to like secretly talk about it. I know all about it. Yeah. Which he's like, what? You do? Anyway, he essentially, like, says, like, I know how you feel about your brother Malik, and, like, is this marriage a ploy to get your brother back? And Casteel, like, has to sort of, like, try and assure him that, no, I do believe, like, my brother is gone. We'll never get him back. And he says, like, maybe marrying Poppy will give us some bargaining power, but, like, I definitely have feelings for her.
So, if I were them, I'd be like, Alistair, how do you think that this would help us? Because
Yeah.
if I were Casteel, I'd send Poppy away and be like, how could this help me marrying her? How could this help us get my brother back? Because I think
I'd like to.
Shit.
Yeah. Alistair then says, like, he wants to talk to Poppy alone to make sure that she isn't being, like, coerced into this marriage. So, like, Casteel lets her go with him, and they chat a little bit about how she's been trained and how she can fight, and he's really surprised that she learned how to fight, and, like, she talks about Victor and, you know, how he helped her. And he also, so, like, this is the start of the cattiness at this point from Alistair. Because then he's like, you know, in another, if things had been different, you know, like, I love Casteel, like, if things had been different, he would have been my son.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, what? What do you mean? And he's like, oh, Casteel's been in love before, and he was engaged to my daughter, Shay. And that's why I was so shocked to hear of the engagement, because he didn't think Casteel would ever let himself love that way again. So, like,
an immortal man.
Well, yeah. Like, come on. But, like, still, like, planting this seed in her head, that's sketch.
It is. It's really shitty. Like,
yes.
Making her doubt herself because someone loved someone.
However many years ago.
I don't remember a whole lot of this, but I do know that, like, they were in love before he was captured.
Yes.
So that was a long-ass time ago.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it that.
We're thinking, like, he was captured and held for 50 years.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, 70-ish years ago. Because we don't know how long he's been loose.
Yeah. Yeah, really, though. Well, how long has his brother been? Because they were like, he's been captured for this long, and he's definitely dead, even though I'm pretty sure Casteel was captured for longer.
Yeah.
But go off.
Anyway. But yeah, so it's just like, no, dude, you don't do that. Like, you can tell that he's doing some subtle undermining here.
Yeah.
But then he has the audacity to say that Poppy reminds him of Shay, and maybe that's why Casteel is drawn to her. Like,
yeah.
What a dick thing to say. You don't say that to somebody. Oh, you're just like my daughter who's dead, who he loved before. That's probably why he likes you.
Yeah, that's real shitty.
Isn't that shitty? That's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
But, like, again, when I first read this book the first time, I completely glossed over this.
I did too, yeah.
But, like, that's a shitty thing to say.
It is.
And then... oh, sorry.
No, just the whole bringing it up is shitty, and, like, I kind of, the first time, I was like, ooh, this seems like he's trying to put some space between them. Like, it's clearly a tactic to put some space between them. And I kind of did catch that the first time, but I didn't realize how shitty it is towards her.
Yes!
Until, yeah, good point.
Anyway, and then he also adds, like, she's like, oh, well, she's obviously dead. How did she die? And he's like, oh, her death is not my story to share. And it's like, actually, it kind of would be. It's your child! Like, her and Casteel were not even married yet. Like,
yeah.
It kind of is your story to share.
I think the issue turns out to be that he doesn't know the whole story.
Yes.
So I am glad that he doesn't, because then she'd be misinformed. It'd be another miscommunication thing that would make me want to blow my brains out.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he didn't. But it's also more like, it's so shitty. It's like making her seem like an angel, and like Shay, like an angel that did nothing wrong, and she just died, and now Casteel's sad forever type thing.
Yeah.
And like, he's never gonna get over it.
Yeah. And like, just the fact that like he can't give her, not closure, it's not the right word, but like he brings her up and puts her in her mind, but then doesn't tell her everything.
Yeah. And it's definitely like, he knows that Casteel doesn't talk about her. So he thinks that this is like, it's so manipulative. I hate that word. Because it's hard to say. But he knows that Casteel probably won't talk about her, so he's assuming that she'll go ask him, and then he'll get mad or something. Like, it's really shitty.
Yeah.
So shitty.
Anyway, so he says, like, her death's not my story, but maybe one day Casteel will find it in his heart to share the story with you. As if, like, he doesn't love her enough now. He doesn't trust her enough to share it right yet.
And they're engaged.
Yeah. So, manipulation!
Yeah. So manipulative.
Yeah.
It's so shitty.
Yeah. Anyway, so then he tells her, like, you know, if you are being forced into this marriage, if you are being coerced, like, I'll help you escape, and I'll find somewhere for you, and I'll keep you away from anybody that will do her harm. Like, he's very father figuring, like, do you need me to help you get out? I totally will. And again, it reminds her of Victor, so she's, like, crying a little bit, and he's like, oh my god, it's true, you are being forced into this marriage, because she's, like, crying.
Yeah.
But then she has to be like, thank you, like, no, like, I'm not being used. And, like, I think the word choice there is very important. So, like, she says she's not being used. Because she's not. She's a willing participant in this ruse to get, like, because she needs Casteel to help her with her brother. And, like...
she's not... It's smart. She's not lying to him.
No.
It's the truth.
Yeah. So they walk back, like, I guess they had taken a little walk outside, and they're on their way back in. And she asks him if it's possible that her parents have been looking for help from someone like him, because I guess she heard through the grapevine that years ago when Poppy was small, and I guess maybe during the war and a little bit after the war, people like Alistair would help people in Solace with Atlantean blood, would help them escape. And there were a few people like it, but it was like an underground network of people helping Atlanteans, like, escape back into Atlantia. So she asked, like, if it's possible that her parents did that, and that's why they were leaving. Because she says she vaguely remembers her dad meeting someone, but she says, like, she can't remember who it is. And he's like, you know, there's not very many of them around still, but, like, the ones that are still around, I'll ask. And so then she says, like, what are your parents' names? And she says their names are Coralina and Leopold, which are lovely names. Coralina is just a really nice name. Yeah. And then he brings her to the library where Casteel is and leaves her with him and Kieran. So they chat a little bit, I guess, her and Kieran Casteel, about expectations that Casteel's dad has. And apparently he needs to become king, like, when he gets back, because that's what his parents want. Because apparently kings and queens of Atlantia are only allowed to rule for 400 years, and then either a child of theirs takes over, or someone can challenge the whole family for the role, for the crown. And his parents have been ruling for longer than 400 years, because Malik was supposed to take over, but then he was captured. And so now they want Casteel to take over. Casteel doesn't want to take over because that is sort of him giving up and saying, like, that his brother is beyond reach, and he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And the only reason that their parents are still king and queen is because nobody has challenged them for the role. But anybody could at any time.
Yeah. But it's funny because they're on their way back, and he didn't tell her any of this. I think I would have murdered him. Like, obviously, like, he's a prince, so, like,
yeah,
there's a possibility that he could one day, but, like, you're not actually thinking that he will become king.
Yeah. And I guess this also didn't really occur to Poppy, like, right, if I marry him, he becomes king, that'll make me the queen. Like, it never really entered into her head. And, I mean, it sort of should have, I think.
Well, yes.
So they sort of agree that, like, they have to try and convince, like, Alistair especially. They really have to convince him that they're in love and they do want to get married. So, Poppy spends the rest of the day in the library. I guess Casteel goes and does, like, princely things. Kieran, like, hangs out with her, sort of guarding her. And she ends up finding, like, a book behind a book. And it's, like, just a census, like a book of records from 800 years ago. And apparently there are, like, lists of, like, all different types of Atlanteans that died off during the war. And Kieran leans over to get a better look at the book that she's looking at, and he touches her arm accidentally and gets a shock that really surprises him. And while this doesn't seem important now, it comes into play much later. Like, at the very end of this book.
I was going to say it has to be in this book, because I didn't read much of book 3.
But it does, like, factor in a lot in book 3, but very, very end of book 2. So we're gonna put that away for now. Keep it in your back pocket.
Noted.
So Casteel then comes in, and, like, him and Kieran switch places. So then Kieran leaves, and Casteel and Poppy have some alone time, and they talk more about the bloodlines that she's seeing in the book. So this is sort of our world building moment. So, like, they're looking at the different bloodlines in the book, and apparently there's, like, wyverns, which I also don't understand, because apparently the wyvern bloodline could shift into giant cats. When I think of a wyvern, that's not real. I don't think of cat, but...
It's spelled the same way as wyvern, is it? Because a wyvern is, like...
So the way it's spelled in this book is Wivern, wyvern, but I think... It's Wyvern, so I don't know if that, maybe it's pronounced wyvern, I don't know, but I just think it's a bit odd using that same word.
It's an archaic spelling of the other word. And the definition, we've done this before on this podcast, talked about the difference between dragons and wyverns, but it's a fire-breathing dragon, basically.
Yeah. So I don't understand why they can, because so there are wyverns that can shift into giant cats, and then there are drakens that can turn into dragons. So
interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like you could just use a different word.
Yeah.
Like
what?
Kiverns.
Yes.
Kitterns.
Yes, there you go.
Catterns.
Yeah. Like literally anything else.
Yeah.
But
sometimes
there's a choice. And there are also then Serene, who were like mermaids.
Yeah. Sirens.
Yeah. Yeah. But apparently a lot of these bloodlines faded even before the war, just from, like, just interbreeding. So then they start talking about so there is this set, like, this class of Atlanteans called Centurions, which were like a warrior class. So, like, they used their powers in battle. But again, a lot of them died before the war in an uprising of the elemental Atlanteans, which is like Casteel, against the deities, who were the daughters, or who were the kids of the gods. And in the end, all the deities were killed except for the one on the throne, until he was finally killed for creating the first vampire, which is King Malik. So it turns out King Malik was a deity, not an Atlantean. It was a deity. So the Centurions, the warrior race of Atlanteans, had different powers. So there was a primordial line who could summon earth. There were pyros that could use fire. Others were necromancers. The Cimmerians could make it nighttime. And then there were empaths that could read the emotions of others and amplify that emotions. So that's what Casteel believes Poppy's bloodline is. He believes that she's from an ancient bloodline of empaths. But this is sort of, okay, so I'm not knocking this. I'm not complaining. But this is what I'm talking about when I talk about this book being confusing. Right? So, we've got gods, we've got deities, we've got elemental Atlanteans, we've got, shapeshifter Atlanteans, then we've got these different bloodlines of warrior Atlanteans, and it's just I just feel like it could be so much simpler.
Yes. It kind of, in a way, reminds me of, how confusing Crescent City is. The first book, I was like, why do we need this much shit? And I know it's because of everything else she had planned, and I feel like it's the same with this book, is because she's come out with another series that's about maybe the gods, maybe their children, I can't remember. I didn't read it because I haven't caught up on the rest of it.
Right.
But, she's trying to branch out and do, multiple different things with this one world, and I think it's hard to stick all of this information in a book in conversation between characters. I don't know how else you can really do it, but there's just too much and it's too confusing.
And I feel so I appreciate that Poppy was sheltered. So yeah, she's got she's gonna be curious about things. But I feel like using the excuse of I just have a million questions, it's just used a lot, especially in this book. It's her and Kieran have a running gag of, why am I surprised you have more questions? And it's used a bajillion times as the excuse of explaining world building stuff. And I appreciate she's got, there's this huge world that needs to be explained, but if it can't be done succinctly, then maybe it needs to be pared down a bit.
Yeah.
Because I am overwhelmed. And this is 2 pages of conversation and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I feel like some of it could have been left out of here anyway. We don't really at this point need to know about the other bloodlines that that are no longer exist. If they can bring that up later. Yeah. I know it is weird to be I also don't like when books do that. Sometimes, if one of these bloodlines is coming back, they're like, oh, remember this bloodline you never heard about? I don't love that either, but there has to be, there's too much in this one scene.
Yeah. But, I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. But it does mean that, you either need to have, Cole's notes, or you need to reread it to be able to understand the rest of the books in the series.
Yeah. And it only gets, you would think, at least with Crescent City, it gave us everything up front, and then you went on with the plot. You know what I mean? Everything was put up front. There was, world building for, the first 5 to 6 chapters, and then it was yeah, okay, plot.
Yeah.
This, it's a little bit of plot, world building. A little bit of plot, world building. A little bit of plot, world building. And it just,
yeah. It felt clunky in Crescent City too. It was I was this is a lot to be throwing at us right now.
Yeah.
When we were reading it too. So I don't know what I'd prefer, but
yeah.
It's just a lot. And I know it is a fantasy thing, but the other thing is a lot of these books are supposed to be romantasy, and I appreciate fantasy, but I'm not getting in this for the Lord of the Rings style conflicts and all that stuff. I can read Lord of the Rings for that. I can read other fantasy books that are marketed as fantasy. It's just a bit confusing for romantasy books.
Yeah.
Which I get that fantasy and women's fantasy books, because that's mainly what they are, is marketed towards women. They can definitely be just as complex as regular fantasy books. I just don't know if I need that in my fantasy books.
Yeah.
And I'm I don't know. I'm not trying to sit down and learn too much when I'm reading my books. And maybe that's an issue with me, and maybe I'm just not smart enough to grasp all of this, but it just seems too much.
Yeah. Anyway, complaint over. We're gonna get some action now in a second, so it makes up for it. So, not that kind of action.
Oh, okay.
So, Niall comes in, like, so, I guess Casteel sort of says, oh, I think you're an empath. And she's like, oh, cool. And then Niall comes in and says that they have visitors, that the Ascended are here.
Hey.
Bum, bum, bum. So they obviously take action immediately. Casteel orders the staff in the keep. So, like, they're in it, like, not a castle, but, like, in a, a keep. And he says, like, hide the children, and whatever you do, don't antagonize the Ascended. And he, like, hauls Poppy through, like a little, not a secret back, but he, like, takes her out through the back, essentially. And, like, through the kitchen. And he says that, like, he's planning on, they go, essentially, like, hide in the woods while the Ascended are there. But they see a carriage with a royal crest on it and realize that they sent royal knights. And the royal knights are, like, an elite class of soldiers.
Yeah, this is another thing that I'm like, this is just adding another layer that I don't know we needed. Because they are Ascendeds.
But she didn't know they were Ascended.
Oh,
That's the thing.
true.
She thought they were just humans. And they were just, like, elite trained warriors. But it turns out that they're Ascended.
But they're still trained more than the usual Ascendants because they don't train at all.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Anyway. So the Ascended line everybody up, including the children that they find, I'm assuming. Like, if they hid most of the children, I would assume they wouldn't have all of them. And Casteel asks Poppy, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can go turn yourself in. Like, they're right there. Because at this point, he knows, like, that she ran so she could get to her brother. So, like, go turn yourself in. Like, look, they're right here. They'll bring you right to your brother. Like, you can be free of this. Especially, like, you don't really want to marry me. But she sort of, like, is like, no, like, you were sort of right. I have a better chance of getting to my brother with you than with these guys. Because, like, they might not bring me where I need to go. And her and Cass sort of get into a little fight because he's pissed, like, now that she was going to give herself up. Like, that, like, now
she would have died before she made it anyway.
Well, yeah, but he's pissed that was her plan. That her plan was to find the Ascended and try and get into the capital city, find her brother, and then still manage to sneak out afterwards. Mm-hmm. And he thinks it's stupid, and he's mad at her about it. And he's like, your plan is stupid, and I refuse to carve your name on that wall. And it's like, that's adorable, but at the same time, dude, like, you're 24 hours late with this annoyance.
Yeah. And you were also annoyed last night, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, this is enough. She realized her mistake. She just admitted she realized her mistake again when she's, like, able to run to the Ascended easily right now. So,
yeah.
Let's kill this.
Yes, let's just drop it. So the knights question Elijah, who's, like, I guess speaking, I don't know if he's, like, the leader, but, like, the head guy in the town. So they question him about Lord Halverston, and Lord Halverston is the supposed, like, Ascended who rules this town. He's dead, but they don't know that. Yeah. So they're like, well, where is he? And he's like, well, I guess he's hunting. And they're like, well, we checked his cabin and it doesn't seem like anyone's been there for a while. And he was like, well, then I guess he's somewhere else. Like, and he sort of gives them a little bit of attitude. Like, I don't appreciate you, like, insinuating this. And, like, you've got the children out in the cold. And, like, he's given a bit of tude. Mm-hmm. And then some guy comes out of the carriage and, like, Poppy is, like, shocked that he's there, but said, like, he always seemed nice and, like, didn't really press, like, he was appropriate with her when she met him in the past. But it's Lord Cheney. And he asked about the group that arrived with them a few days ago. and apparently there was a girl with him. And Elijah and Magda both lie and say no one arrived and there was no woman. Not true. But then Mrs. Tooley or Toolis gets out of the carriage, and Casteel then tells Poppy, like, shit, like, go get underground, like, you shouldn't see this. He knows he's gonna have to intervene now. And Lord Cheney asks again what Mrs. Toolis said, and Mrs. Toolis said that the maiden was here, but Elijah reiterates that there is no maiden here. Ha ha ha! Tongue-in-cheek little... Because she ain't a maiden no more. Wink, wink, wink.
It's true.
And he actually says, there is no maiden here, not in any sense of the word. Ha ha!
That's good.
Ah! She lost her V card.
It's true.
So, I guess because Elijah is so insistent, Lord Cheney then flies to Mrs. Toolis and cracks her neck and kills her. And everyone is sort of like, why did you do that? And he was like, well, if there's no maiden here, then she obviously lied, so her punishment's deserved. So that's sort of like a E.
It's intense, man.
Yeah. Then he asks, like, if she was telling the truth, then that means all of you are dissenters and lying. And no one says anything. And then one of the knights just slashes the stomach of one of the people in line. And the guy just says, like, fuck you, dude. And spits on him. So the knight just decapitates him and just takes his head off. Which is amazing. Like, not actually amazing, but, like, I love that the guy just said, fuck you. And, like, he's, like, his, like, organs are, like, falling out of his stomach. And he's like, fuck you!
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
It shows how much tougher they are. Like, physically and mentally.
Yeah.
I think, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, then, that same knight decides to be a real dick and grabs a child and puts his sword to the child's throat. And Cheney is, like, trying to convince them, like, tell me where the maiden is, and, like, we'll let you all go, we'll let you all leave, we'll leave you guys in peace. But Elijah tells him, like, he doesn't believe that he will he was like, I don't believe that. So he's not going to say anything. Yeah. But he also says, like, I'm not the one hiding behind a child, which is like, you go, Elijah, but also like, Elijah.
There's still a child there. Let's not get the child killed.
Yeah, dude. Like, anyway, at this point, Casteel has seen enough. The child is in danger. So he gets out of his hiding place and tells Cheney that he has the maiden and he isn't giving her back. Like, or, I mean, he obviously introduces himself first. I'm the Dark One! I got her and I'm not giving her back. Woo.
Woo.
At which point, Cheney changes and his teeth come out and his eyes go black and he gets all, like, murdery. And this is the moment where some of the knights change too, and this is what shocks Poppy, because she said there are not supposed to be ascended in the royal army. They're all supposed to be mortals. Because the ascended are supposed to live in the lap of luxury, because they're ascended. Yeah, they're gifts from the gods.
Yeah.
Anyway. Casteel had left Poppy her bloodstone dagger next to her, because I guess... I don't remember if she had it, when she escaped. I don't think she did.
She didn't, she didn't, because she lost it.
She lost it
at the end of the last book.
Yeah.
When
they attacked her.
Yeah, she left it in the shed, and she was gonna go back for it, and then she was like, that is how you die.
Yeah. So she hasn't had it since then. So... Turns out he was holding on to it for the whole time, and when he went out, he actually left it on the grass next to her, sort of saying, like, here, protect yourself, let's fight. And she watches the fight break out, and she notices the similarity between how the Ascended fight and how the Craven fight. So, like, she's really seeing, like, that Ascended are actually way closer to Craven than expected. And she sees the Ascended being stabbed by Bloodstone, and it's, like, super gross. She says they, like, I called the term they Voldemort, because they, like, they just, like, disintegrate into ash.
Oh, God.
So they so Voldemorted.
Yeah.
And so, like, Poppy's like, oh, shit. So she finally starts to, like, get in on the battle, and she sees the knight that had the child at knife point head over to the stable, and she's like, oh, shit, he's gonna eat that kid. Which is, like, just inappropriate at the time. Like, there's a battle breaking out, and you're going for a snack, like...
For a snack, yeah, sure.
Right? Like, it's just a little bit like, save the snack for after the battle if you've won.
Yes. Maybe it's his last meal.
Maybe he knows he ain't leaving. Yeah. So Poppy, like, sneaks up on him and throws her dagger at him, so it, like, and it gets him right in the eye, right in the brain, which is an amazing shot.
Didn't even get his last meal.
No. Then another knight finds her, and she has to tell the boy to, like, run and hide. And then she kills that knight. And then Lord Cheney sees her. And she sees that he grabbed the kid. Like, this kid needs to, like, learn how to get out of range.
Yeah.
Find a good hiding spot there, kid. But yeah, so he has the kid by the neck. And she sort of pretends to be happy to see him. She's like, oh my god, you found me! Like, I've been held hostage. And she's like, you're gonna leave that boy alone, right? And take me back to the queen. And she realizes that, like, the only way he'll... Like, she's trying to get the kid out of... Like, trying to get him to release the kid. So she's like... Yeah. She essentially surrenders. So she drops her dagger to make it believable that she's surrendering to him. And then she's hit in the back of the head and passes out. Wakes up a little bit later in the carriage. They're, like, on the move. One of the knights had hit her over the head. And she's still, like, pretending that she's glad to have been found. She's trying to, like, she's trying to get information out of Cheney. But then she, like, asks about Mrs. Toulis and, like, asks, like, why did you, like, what happened? And he says they found her walking in the cold. And she told them that the Maiden and the Dark One were in that town. She's wondering, like, what happened to the child? Like, what happened to little Tobias? And the assumption is that he has also been eaten.
Yeah. So do you think that she was just walking with her child and he found her?
I don't know. They never...
Because
they
winter.
Don't go into it.
Where was she going to go? Like, she kind of had to stay with the Dissenters because she already, like, ran away from the Ascended and stole her child.
I don't think she
stole her child.
I don't think she was really thinking properly.
That's fair. Because I was like, I know his story has holes, and that's the point, but I was just confused about, was she just walking in the cold with her child?
Honestly, it was not clear whether the child was there or not. I think it is.
She assumes. She assumes it got eaten.
Yeah. Anyway, so Cheney then says, like, you can stop pretending. Like, I saw the bite mark on your neck. Like, I know that you're faking. Like, I know that you're not actually happy to see me. Because, like, I guess because she was bitten, the lore that the Ascended spread around is that if you're bitten by an Ascended, you'll turn Craven. So the fact that she was bitten by, not an Ascended, by an Atlantean, sorry. If you're bitten by an Atlantean, you turn into a Craven. So the fact that she's not a Craven means that she knows that what they spread is a lie.
Yeah.
So he says, like, the king and queen are going to be displeased that she's been compromised. Essentially, that she is not, like, brainwashed anymore.
Yeah, imagine.
I know. It's terrible. Like, all this hard work they put in, all down the drain. So Lord Cheney was actually injured in this fight. He was stabbed in the heart, and he's, like, bleeding out. But he says that he's gonna heal. And then he also says, like, I know what you are, I know what's in your blood. Like, he's one of the people that knows the truth. And he also says, like, she's gonna usher in a whole new era of Ascended. Which, like, we're sort of... He's actually really cagey, and, like, stuff that he says, I still don't know the answer to.
No, I know, and I feel like we just blow past it, and we don't... But, like, it clearly is breadcrumbs.
Yeah, but, like, at the same time, like, they're breadcrumbs that, like, I'm not 100% sure... Like, I know quite a bit, and I'm not sure what the answer is.
Yeah. I don't know probably as much, but, like, from his conversation, it sounds like their plan for her is completely different than what we assumed.
Yes.
And that confuses me.
Yes. Also confused.
Yes.
Anyway, so, like, he's obviously a lot more hurt than he lets on, and he says, like, they obviously need her alive, but that's about it. So he moves towards her to bite her, to heal, but she keeps kicking him back. Like, they're in a close quarters, so she just, like, puts her foot on his chest and just, like, pushes, which is amazing. And, like, she's, like, scooting away from him, and he's, like, again, they're in close quarters. There's only so far she can scoot. Yeah. So she, like, scoots towards the door, and he's, like, at the speed we're going, you're gonna get trampled by the horses and die. And she's like, well, I'd rather take my chances getting trampled to death than letting you bite me. But he manages to, like, grab her foot, and he, like, pulls her close to him. She does have, like, a steak knife that she kept from one of the meals to have a weapon. And she tries to fight him off, but it's, like, it's no use. He manages to, like, get at her arm, and he bites her. And she thinks it's, like, so painful. It's nothing at all like Casteel's bite. And it reminds her of what that Craven attack was when she was small. Like, it feels like that. So, again, more similarities between Ascended and Craven. But then she uses the knife to stab him, and she just keeps stabbing him over and over and over. She's, like, stabbing him in the back. She's stabbing him in the shoulder, in his chest, in his face. Like, anywhere she can stab, she is stabbing.
Yeah. Like, with her shitty little knife. Yeah. Like, it's not a great knife, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. So then, like, I guess he lets go briefly, and then he's attacking her, and she's in, like, so much pain, but she just keeps stabbing and stabbing and stabbing, and then she feels the carriage stop, and the door opens, and night descends.
Is that supposed to mean something?
Well, no, but this is it not calling references to, like, one, no one has night powers.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just, it's calling me to, like, a Reese similar.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You know.
So, they must have attacked during the night. So it actually is night outside, or else any of the Ascendeds would die.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
This seems like a long time. Because, like, it seems like they're in, like, a blackout carriage, basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yes. Anyway, it's good pointing that out. Because I missed that. Yeah. So, Cheney is, like, ripped off of her, but, like, she's still stabbing. She's, like, stabbing the air. Because she's in, like, such a fight-or-flight moment that she can't get out of it. And she doesn't stop stabbing until she hears someone say, like, princess. No. And she looks, and turns out it's Hawk, and she has, like, a little breakdown and tells him that, like, she didn't want to go, like, she promises she didn't give herself over because of their conversation that they had earlier of him being like, look, they're right there, you could go turn yourself in. And so, like, she has to tell him, like, I only did it because he had a boy hostage. It was the only way he would let that boy go. Mm-hmm. But then Casteel has to tell her, like, but he didn't let that boy go. And he also says, like, she was like, you know, he bit me and it hurt, and she's like, he had to tell her, like, yeah, he wanted the bite to hurt. Like, he could have made it painless, but he didn't. He chose to make it hurt. And he probably would have killed her, because once they start feeding, it's really, really hard to stop. And, like, this is sort of a continuity thing that I also struggle with, because he would have killed her, because once they feed, it's almost impossible for them to stop. Yet, they expect them to be able to control themselves in the ultimatum that they're giving them. So, like, which is it? Because he said they can control themselves. In fact, they have been controlling themselves. But now he's saying they can't control themselves.
Yeah. But also, like, if they can't control themselves, then there would be a lot more deaths than just that one girl that was found in the castle. And, like, I know that people outside of the castle in the first book were being killed from the blood disease thing.
Yeah.
But you'd think it would be way more than however much it is. If it's like, I guess where he was injured, he means he wouldn't be able to control himself, maybe?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I don't know, man. Anyway, she passes out after that. And, she wakes up. And she remembers Casteel gave her his blood again, and she wakes up. She's pretty much healed. And, like, she sort of is like, you didn't have to do that. Like, it wasn't that bad. And he tells her that her minor injuries were bad enough that he, like, wouldn't tolerate them. And he also says, like, we're gonna get ready and leave in the next day or two, because others obviously are gonna come for them. Like, other Ascended are gonna come. And she asks if many of them were hurt. And he tells her that 4 people were killed, including Mrs. Tulis. So, you know.
Which she obviously knew about.
And she asks again after the boy. And he has to tell her again, like, Lord Cheney actually did kill him. He snapped his neck and did not feed on him. So he literally just killed him for funsies. And Poppy sort of says, like, she doesn't understand the point of killing a child if they're not going to feed on him. Like, why? Yeah. And Casteel sort of says, like, I don't know. I guess just because they can. Which is sort of like, I mean, why are people evil? Like, this is like the big, like, it's like this big, like, meta question. Like, why do people hurt other people? Like, because they can. Like, you know. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, but it's also, like, it's a lot, kind of, because it's, like, I know we're trying to make them seem like a very big villain, who they all apparently will just kill with no remorse and are potentially soulless.
Yeah.
So, like, in that regard, it makes sense, but it's also, like, I don't know, if they're redeemable at all, I obviously have no idea where this story goes. I don't think that their plan is going to necessarily work. But you also can't kill every single Ascended either, I wouldn't assume. But I don't know, maybe you can. It's just like, they can't be redeemable and able to control themselves and also completely soulless, and they all just want to kill children.
Yeah.
Like people have duality, sure, but that's too much.
Yeah. Anyway, so, like, Poppy is, like, obviously pissed and frustrated about this whole thing. Like, about the whole situation. But, like, she knows that, like, being shocked about the deaths is a good thing, because, like, it means that she isn't like them. But, like, why would you think you're like them anyway?
I get that they raised her, but, like, she's not an Ascendant.
No. She asks, like, what would happen if he keeps giving her his blood. And he doesn't think anything. He's like, I don't think anything will happen. I think it's fine. But it's sort of like, you think? You're not sure?
Something will eventually happen. Like, you can't just...
You're not 100% sure?
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Right? Anyway, like... But he also said, like, I don't know, maybe eventually if I gave you a ton of blood, you could ascend.
Hey.
And then he tells her, like, your scars are beautiful and they make you who you are, but, like, I refuse to let you get one more scar. Just cute.
It's nice. And, like, it's called back to something I think he said last book, maybe? Oh, yeah. At the end of last book, he promised that she would never get a scar again.
Right.
And that's when he first gave her his blood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So they are leaving in the next day or two, obviously. We already said that. But before they go, she wants to offer to use her abilities for the people that have been injured. So it's not just the 4 people that died. I think they said like 8-ish people were injured. So she wants to use her abilities, her power to, like, take pain away. She wants to help. Casteel doesn't think that's a good idea, though, because people don't trust her, and they don't like her. And he says that to her. It's not like he kept that inside. He's like, I don't think that's a good idea. The people here don't like you, and they don't trust you. It's like, oh, thanks, dude. Thanks. It's like, oh, you don't want me to have one more scar, but you're okay telling me that everybody hates me. Thank you. Anyway. So she says, her response is just, I don't need them to like me. I don't need them to trust me. I just want to help.
So Poppy and Casteel walk hand in hand, and she feels a spark when they're holding hands, which is just interesting and might come up later, but could also just be attraction. We never really get if it's something or if it's that they're so in love, they spark when they touch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he tells her he has something for her once she's done with her healing plans. So they're, like, walking down, and they see there's apparently a fully grown blood tree outside now, where Poppy was taken. And, like, there was nothing there before, and now there's a fully grown tree. Which, obviously, is a big deal. But, they say, everyone thinks it's basically an omen from the gods, that they're watching, even though they slumber, and change is coming.
Assholes.
Yeah. I just find it so weird. I can't imagine, I know it wouldn't happen in this world, but, like, a fully grown tree just appearing seems too fantastical to me. I'm like, I know it's a fantasy world, but I'm like, that is too much. I don't believe it. Vampires, fine. Wolven, fine. A full-grown tree overnight, I don't like
Not
it.
fine. Oh my god, we have to talk about for a second. I sent you a meme earlier, and I just feel like it has to be mentioned. I sent Catherine a meme earlier, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. So it was like a vampire having a conversation. So he goes and bites someone and starts drinking someone. And then a librarian, it says, like, excuse me, sir. And then, and then, like, points to a sign saying no food. And the vampire's like, oh, sorry. And drags the person, like, out the door. And she's like, this is your second warning.
It's so good.
I just love it so much. Sorry. You brought up vampires and I couldn't let it lie.
That's fair. It's a good one. So they end up going to the room where all the injured people are, and she can obviously feel the pain before she even enters, because some people are hurt pretty badly. There are 5 men there and 1 woman, and apparently the woman looks super near death. Like, she's past feeling pain. She's gonna die very soon. Alistair is also there. There's so many times that I just want to punch him in the face, especially reading, like, on after this week. Like, he's saying so much dumb shit now that I'm like, why are you doing this? So Poppy goes to take one of the men's hand and take away his pain, and she can feel a deep grief, and she asks him who he lost, and he says his grandfather, and he, like, asks how she knows that, but she just, like, kind of moves on. And she takes the pain away from the next man, and then she goes to a wolven, and he says, like, he'll heal anyway, but she responds he doesn't have to be in pain. So he reaches out his hand, and lets her take away his pain. And then he says he understands, and he looks to Casteel and says that Jasper will be interested. What does that mean?
Who knows?
The next person she goes to doesn't want her touch, and she can feel the hatred and distrust like rolling off of them. Which I feel like there's too much hatred for her. Like, I get it in a way, but I also just feel like it's too much.
I also I think that something comes up next week, so I don't want to get too much into a little rant, but I will.
Fair.
I feel like she does so much to try and stem the tide of hatred towards her. She literally is boys, this is what they did to me, and I don't like them.
Yeah.
And everybody's showing her this is what they're really like. And she's okay, I'm on board. But then everybody still hates her. What's a girl gotta do to switch sides?
It's a lot.
I just feel it's unwarranted.
Yeah.
She is an 18-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I know that she's a symbol of the Ascended's power and belief system and whatever, and all the mortals believe that she's blessed or whatever. I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. But for these grown-ass men and women to look at an 18-year-old and be I hate your guts, you're the worst, I want to kill you with my bare hands. I think it's too much.
Yeah. It is. It's kind of unrealistic. I don't know, I haven't been in a situation like this before, obviously, but it feels too unrealistic, the amount of hatred everybody has. I'm they do try to come up with another reason for it. That people are afraid of her because of the power she has, too. But I'm it's too much.
Yeah.
I need more believability.
Yeah. It's almost oh, wait. We need a reason for people to dislike her. Oh, okay, maybe. Great. Oh, she's proving them wrong. We need another reason for people to dislike her. Oh, no, never mind. We need another. It's compounding. It's just pick a lane.
Yeah, it rubs me the wrong way. I'm not enjoying it. And I can understand if she could feel distrust off of this man, but I don't know why it's hatred.
Yes.
It's
yeah, he doesn't know her. How can he hate her guts?
No, and everybody should know that she was basically held captive. Even if you don't like her on principle because of the Ascended, it's obvious that they would have held her captive now that we know that she has Atlantean blood. They weren't going to let her do whatever she wanted. So everyone should be oh, clearly she didn't have a great life. It doesn't need to be spelled out to you.
But she does spell it out.
Yes, yeah.
She spells out what her life was like. And then people are still well, I still don't like you.
Well, you're the reason that our children are dead. Only Mr. Toulis. But it was just so dumb that he got himself killed because of that. Anyway.
Can I just add in that we are filming this podcast right now. Or recording this podcast right now during a heat wave. I am loving my iced latte.
Nice.
Just had to get the coffee part in there.
I liked it, yes.
I'm living my best life.
Yeah, it's iced coffee or bust right now. Except for I still have hot coffee every morning, so it's a complete lie.
I had 3 cups of hot coffee this morning. But now we're in the hot. It's hot outside. Yeah. Which is saying something, guys. I don't think I've ever been alive for
where
we've had a heat wave.
I know.
And we've had one for 2 weeks, and it's what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Normally we have rain, drizzle, fog just all the time.
Yeah.
It's heat wave day. So, yay.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I say heat wave, that's like 35.
Yeah. But like,
it's not actually that hot. Like,
no, but it does say on the weather app there is a bar that says heat wave because we're not used to this heat. It's not like we're not overreacting. There's actually like they've called it a heat wave. It's not just us calling it a heat wave.
No. And like to also be fair. So like that's 35 degrees with humidity. Like so it's not actually 35 degrees. It's actually only like 29 degrees, but then the humidity makes it like 35 degrees. But our humidex, we have like our humidity is like between 50 and 100%. So like that means the air, if you don't know about humidity, that means the air is between 50% and 100% saturated with water. At some point, the sweat cannot evaporate off of you because the air cannot take any more.
Yeah.
So the sweat does not cool you down anymore, which is the problem, which is why we're having a heat wave. Because the sweat is not evaporating off of our skin. It's staying there and you just get more moist.
And for our American friends, 30 degrees is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it feels like around 95 degrees Fahrenheit with the humidity.
Which, I mean, again, like, I feel like you go to places like, I have a friend of mine, I'll call them a friend, more like a friend of the family, who is originally from Georgia, or their parent is from Georgia, so they've visited quite extensively, and they laugh at our heat wave because they're like, "This is not a heat wave. Like this is nothing."
Yeah.
But the humidity makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Like temperature wise, no, 29 degrees is actually not that. Like I could stand it.
Yeah.
But the humidity kills it.
Yeah. Fun times.
So off that tangent, back to book.
Yes. So she obviously doesn't force this man to have his pain taken away, which is good, I suppose. She's a nice person.
Consent!
Really, though. So then she goes over to the woman, and the woman's mother is with her, and she just says, like, her gifts would be wasted on her since she's basically dying.
Mm-hmm.
But she does say that she's heard of Poppy, and she used to live in Macedonia, and heard of her giving dignity to the cursed. And then she tells Poppy that Poppy is a second daughter, not a maiden, but chosen nonetheless. Who are these people with these cryptic things?
I don't know, because I don't understand this, and I still don't understand it. Having, like, read the third book, having, like, Wikipedia the fourth book, like, I still don't understand what this means.
They get into it a little bit later.
Someone, please explain to me. No, but all the things that you think are valid are not valid.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we'll get there in the third book, I guess.
Eventually we'll get there, yeah. But, like, if somebody needs to please explain this to me. So, like, DM me, write, like, spoiler in the heading so Catherine doesn't read it.
Yes, please.
And just tell me what it means.
Okay.
Anyway, continue.
So, Poppy, Casteel, and Alistair go outside, and she tells them about the distrust and hatred. And Alistair admits that, like, they don't understand her, and there's been no one like her since this line of empath warriors. So it's a bloodline that is extinct now, but they used to be Atlanteans, but now they no longer exist.
And super scary, apparently.
Yeah. So he asks Poppy about Ian, because he wonders if he is also part Atlantean.
Yeah.
But Casteel says that he definitely ascended, and he says he's, like, very sure that, obviously, the Atlanteans wouldn't turn someone with Atlantean... No, that the Ascended wouldn't turn someone with Atlantean blood, so they really can't have the same parents. Like, obviously, one of Poppy's parents had to be Atlantean or Descended. Clearly, Ian's wasn't. I don't know when this gets resolved, if we find anything else out, because I have no idea what happens with this. But
a million things happen with this.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good to know. Maybe I'll finish them someday. Maybe I'll read the books.
Or you could just Wikipedia stuff.
I'm never going to Wikipedia. Never. Anyway. Alistair says that some of the older warriors will remember the empaths, and that plus the omen of the tree isn't good. He argues like the omen is likely about them because they are getting married, and that'll bring about change. Which, will it?
I just like the name Blood Tree just sounds so sinister. And, like, they spend the rest of this book arguing, oh, this omen isn't necessarily a bad thing, change doesn't have to be bad, and blah, blah. And I'm like, no, but, like, a blood tree? It doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like good change.
So, like, all of the blood trees in the blood forest that it takes, like, days to travel through, are they all omens from different times? Like, where did they come from? This is just...
Good question.
Not relevant to what we're talking about, though. Anyway, he also tells them that empaths were called soul eaters in the past because they could siphon energy off of people and, like, take it into themselves. Kind of reminds me of Dementors. I don't really know. Or, like, a succubus of some sort.
Yeah. But, like... I guess my question is, like, would they be able to use this energy to, like, fuel themselves like a succubus? Or was it just, like, siphoning it off and absorbing it? And it just, like, hey, this is just a part of me. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if they could turn it into fuel for themselves or, like, redirect the energy into, like, more power or, like, I wonder if they could do shit with it.
You'd assume.
Or if it was just
or just to make
out.
Yeah, I guess
just to make the other person weak.
Yeah. I can't see, like, in a battle it makes sense to do that, but, like, if regular people are afraid of her at all times, like, if it doesn't help her in any way, like, why would she do it? I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
We need more information.
Yeah.
Imagine. Alistair then tells her that, like, people just need to get to know her because she's actually a nice person. And...
But, like, I almost want to say, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I feel
100%.
like people, like, there is no way they can convince an entire country, kingdom, whatever, that she cannot go around meeting and spending time with every single citizen in that kingdom.
No.
So, like, no. It's not just people need to get to know you because you're a nice person. No, the people are just going to have to trust that the prince wouldn't have married her if she was a soul-eating succubus.
Yeah, really, though. Unless she tricked him.
With
her soul-eating ways. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I need to cut this, but it just makes me think of, like, her giving a blowjob. Just sucking his soul out. Anyway. Yeah. So, Poppy wonders if the lady from the, like, that was just talking to her with the daughter, and the lady that she spoke to at the Red Pearl meant the same thing. Not that she's a second child in that, like, she's younger than Ian, but that she is second generation. So, that I guess that would mean, like, Atlantean grandparents, and then maybe one of her parents was Atlantean, one was not, and she is, but we don't know if that's true. Obviously, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
But that's what she's kind of taking, because she's like, what else could they mean? But Casteel is just like, what do you mean, the lady at the Red Pearl? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, the one that sent me to your room. And he said that nobody did that. He just went to the room and found her there. So I kind of forgot that this happened. But I did, like, when I was reading the first book, I did think that he, like, had planned to get her in that room.
See, I didn't. I did not take it as a plan at all. I took it as a chance meeting.
As a happy accident?
Happy accident. A meet cute, if you will.
But clearly she was doing it on purpose. We just don't really know why she was doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I do believe, I 100% believe that the lady at the Red Pearl sent Poppy into Casteel's room on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I just believe she did it. Like, I don't think Casteel was in on it.
Yeah. I did the first time I read it, but anyway, I believe him now, obviously. If he was in on it, I think he would have said so.
Mm-hmm.
So he then brings Poppy to the pantry for a second to, like, have a moment alone. And he tells her how in awe of her he is for, like, going in to heal them when they hate and just trust her so much. And she just keeps surprising him, and he's just so in awe. And you're like,
I need him to find a different adjective.
Yeah.
Like a different emotion. Because he says he's in awe of her, like, every 10 pages.
Yes.
Find a different word! Sorry.
It's okay. He then says he needs one more thing, and he asks if they can just pretend that, like, that yesterday didn't happen and that he's still Hawk and he wants just one more kiss.
What happened yesterday? I forget. Already.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that myself. I think that was when they were attacked by the Ascendants.
Oh! Yeah.
Big deal.
Big deal, yeah. Okay.
Why there's injured people.
Damn.
So funny. It's not.
No.
Okay. And she knows that she shouldn't, but of course she says yes, because she's, like, fallen head over heels in love with him, really.
Yeah.
But her biggest thing is she doesn't want to fall head over heels in love with him, because she knows that this isn't real for him. So she doesn't want to make out and kiss him because of that.
But she
also
turns her on.
Yeah. So he kisses her lightly, but she pulls him into herself and asks for more, and he gives it. He asks for a kiss, but then he ends up, like, feeling her up under her sweater, and you're like, whoa.
I love it. I'm here for it. I only wish it had turned into hot pantry sex. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So then he kisses down to, like, her healed bite, and she cries out because of it, because apparently that's...
apparently it's an erogenous zone.
Okay.
Until it's healed.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ish. He asks if, like, she wants more, basically, and, like, if she wants him to bite her again, which, like, this would have been a good time for that to happen, I think.
Yes!
I just don't know why he didn't just do it. Like, obviously consent first. I did want consent first, but she's thinking in her head that she wants it, and she would have said it if he had have, like, talked it out of her. But he's just finding it hot that she wants him to bite her. Anyway. So they end up, like, against a door, and her legs are wrapped around him, and...
Can I just say, it's, like, one of my favorite tropes. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the legs going... it's not realistic for the most people.
Yeah.
But I still love it.
Yeah. But, like, he's super built, and she's so tiny that when she puts on anyone's clothes, it falls to her knees. Which I know it's because I'm tall-ish, but I hate it.
I mean, I feel like you could do it if the person was like 7 foot plus.
Which is super realistic. Oh, God. Yeah.
7 feet tall people exist.
They do, yeah.
Yeah. You just have to, well.
I'm okay. Anyway, so he ends up teasing her with his teeth and mouth, and he pulls back and says, "That's enough." And we're like, "Wait, is it? That's enough?" And they just
not
stop.
Enough. It's
They
never
stop.
enough.
She's like so horny right now,
Yeah.
and he is so horny right now, and they just pull apart.
Like,
and you're like, "Wait, what?
This
Why?"
is right. Yeah, like I get it. They're not in a, but like, you have no small children chasing after you. You have no, like, people don't know where you are. Like, take advantage of the fact that you're alone and, like, both super horny. Like,
Bone.
Yes!
Yeah, I agree. I really think that this was a missed opportunity for more sex.
Yes! Huge.
And, like, it's just this turn that happens right now. Also, I'm like, I can't remember if we've gotten to it yet or not. But, like, the smelling arousal thing, I don't know.
Oh.
Did we get there? I can't remember. It doesn't really matter.
No.
But, anyway, they can smell arousal. We might get to it this week. I can't remember. But, if Atlanteans can, Ascendants probably can. Like, they're both super fucking horny right now. And now he's like, "Cool, I have a surprise for you." And he tells her it's not a ring, but it's retribution, and takes her to the dungeon. And Kieran's there, and she kind of wonders at, like, what he can tell from his bond with Casteel. Like, if he can tell that they're both super horny. So we haven't gotten to the smelling part yet. We'll get to it this week, though.
Yeah.
But she's kind of wondering, like, if he can tell what Casteel's doing. Like, if Casteel's having sex, does he realize it? Like, what is this bond actually?
Yeah.
Which is fair, because we have no idea.
No.
But it's pretty Akko. And then they're down there, and Lord Cheney, so the Ascendant that stole her, is in a cell, and he's not looking great. He only has one eye, he has a bunch of wounds, he's got, like, handcuffs and feety cuffs, and they've got spikes in them. And he also has no tongue, because Kieran got pissed at him talking and just cut it out.
But, like, wouldn't you want him to talk? Wouldn't he have information that you would want?
I have nothing. I don't know. I guess they got all the information they wanted, and they were just like, "We need you to shut up now. Stop giving us information too much."
We don't need to know what your last dinner was.
Well, it was Poppy.
True.
But you'd think they would ask, like, what do the Ascendants actually have planned for Poppy? And, like, because he alluded to something, and we have no idea what it is, but, like, why didn't we get more of that?
But I wonder if maybe because he has no soul, maybe torture is useless?
I guess it's still painful.
Yeah, but
I don't need a soul to feel pain. Do you need a soul to feel pain?
Maybe. I don't know.
But,
like, maybe you do feel pain, but maybe you just don't. Maybe you kind of like it? I don't know.
I guess. Maybe. Yes. So, he's not looking great, and Casteel offers her a knife and says that she can either kill him or he can do it, but use her dagger. So, he gives her her dagger back, which she obviously loves very much. Mm-hmm. So she goes into the cell, and she starts to think of, like, all of this Ascendant's victims. So obviously they're the ones that, like, he's taken over the years that she doesn't know. Because they obviously sacrificed all of the children in this place to the Ascendant, basically. But then there's also, like, Miss Toulis, who he snapped her neck. and then everyone upstairs that I think they said 4 died, and like she knows that the woman is probably going to die soon.
And like Tobias, wherever he is.
Yeah, we assume. Yeah. Sad.
Yeah.
And she stabs him in the heart. And she stands there as his body turns to like the dusty thing that you said happened.
The Voldemorting.
Yes, the Voldemorting.
But like, can I just say though too, like, you're standing there, like what if what if there's a breeze and it like blows on you? What if you inhale some of it? Like, ew.
Gross.
Blech. I would step back.
Yes. I would also step back. I would probably just
run
away.
Run away. Like, ew, don't get your dead on me.
Exactly. I don't like it. So, anyway, she did that. She got her gift. It was killing someone. I think I'd rather the diamond ring, to be honest.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
So, later on, Poppy and Kieran are in the library, and she's sighing. So, Kieran asks if, like, there's something she wanted to discuss. And she's like, I have so many questions, because that's what she always says. And she asks him about their bond, and he tells her that, like, they can't read each other's minds, which is good. But they do feel each other's feelings, like, similar to her being able to feel people's feelings. And apparently Casteel can pull energy from Kieran, which is interesting. And sounds kind of succubus-like, but everybody's fine with that.
Right? God! When a
like,
man does it, it's fine.
Really, though.
But a 18-year-old girl does it, and oh my god, she's a soul eater.
It's also interesting because, like, it's clearly much more one-sided. Like, the Wolven get the raw end of this deal.
Yes.
But obviously, I guess
that's
like,
the point.
Being the Wolven of a prince is, like, a treasured position, too, I would assume.
It's like, oh, you can give your life for a prince. It reminds me of, like, people that sign up to be, like, Secret Service and, like, protect people, like, world leaders. And it's like, you know, I'm trained to jump in front of a bullet for my protectee. And it's like, really? You think that that's, like, fun? Like, you're honored.
What if someone listening?
Okay. Well, you're right. Yes, you're right, Catherine.
Yeah.
The Wolven do get the raw end of the deal.
They're very much like, it seems like they're seen as lower. And, like, there's obviously issues between the Wolven and the Atlanteans that I'm assuming we'll get into in different books. There's so many things that are being, like, laid out here that I'm like, I guess this is going to be a
plot point
line in a further novel. There's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So she asks him what happened when Casteel was in captivity. And he says that Casteel went, and I don't remember if we know anything about why Casteel went. I don't think we do. I
think we know that he went to, like, because, he went to assassinate the king and queen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we knew anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just why.
Okay, that makes sense. But he forbade Kieran from following him, and, like, as the prince, and I even think, like, as his like bonded Wolven, I think that he can, like, order him as well. So he actually physically could not follow because it was a, like,
direct order.
Exactly. But he knew something was wrong, and he, like, was physically sick while Casteel was captured for the entire 50 years.
Which is wild.
It is wild. So, like, Casteel was obviously not in great shape, so he was, like, we're assuming bedridden for 50 years, which is a long-ass time.
Sin.
So So that makes Poppy ask about Malik's bonded wolven, and his bonded wolven apparently died trying to rescue him, or else, like, they would know if Malik was alive based on his wolven. But
right.
Where there is no wolven, they don't know. Like, he could easily be dead, and we have no idea. Yeah, so we also get a bit more kind of what I already said. Like, the wolven are bound to die for the elementals, but it's not really reciprocal. Like I think Kieran says Casteel would die for him. He knows that, but, like, he's not bound to die for him like Kieran is bound to die for Casteel. Which is such a weird, it's odd.
It's like, yeah. I wish it was, but they do say that it's not really done anymore.
Yeah, well, there's not enough wolven anymore for, like, everybody to have a bonded wolven, and so it's much less common. But she asks how, like, the bonds all started, and I guess it's kind of like, I assume it's kind of like a tale that is told. But he says the gods gave the wild Kiew wolves a mortal form to protect their children when the elementals started to outnumber the gods' children. So once there were no children of the gods left, the elementals started to take on these bonds with the wolven. And now there's really not enough wolven anymore for everybody to be bonded. And I kind of feel like some of the wolven just don't want to bond because it is such a shitty deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he also says that the wolven want war with the Ascendants for retribution, but Kieran agrees with Cass and thinks that war should be like a last resort type thing.
I mean, if you can manage to not have a war, I think that's the way to go.
Yes, that makes sense, but the other wolven want to have a war because they're so mad. But a lot of wolven died in the war against the War of Two Kings or whatever it's called, that they keep talking back about. Yeah, and then she asks him what his thoughts on the tree are, and he says he thinks that the marriage is going to bring about change. So he also thinks that the tree is about her and Cass getting married, which is fun.
Yeah.
She tells him then that there's something that she wants to do, and they go to the catacombs, and she sees the 11-year-old child's name who was killed right after she was taken / knocked out. And then she chisels in Mrs. Toulis, Tobias, and then Mr. Toulis's names. Because, like, even though both of them really kind of turned on her, you can kind of understand Mrs. Toulis turning on her a bit more than Mr. Toulis. But everything that happened to them was because they were running from the Ascended. So yeah. She thinks, like, they deserve to have their names there, which is nice of her. And she's like, I don't know, it kind of makes her personality a bit annoying, though. Because, like, everyone hates her so much, and she's just so forgiving and nice, and you're like, this isn't realistic. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, no, if people hated me, I'd be like, well, fine, I hate you too.
Right? There would be a lot of tears.
Yeah.
It's just
literally, like, wouldn't be able to step into it. Like, she literally can't step into a room without people, like, staring at her, like, dagger eyes. And she's
she can
like,
feel it. She
knows
like, they hate
I'm okay.
I forgive you. I'd be like, leave me alone.
Be like, I'm not coming out of my room.
Right? 100%. But it kind of, like, makes her seem angelic in a way.
Yeah.
And I
Maiden-esque, almost.
You are correct. Yes. Yeah. So I guess later on, Poppy goes to sleep, and then she wakes up from a nightmare, and she grabs her knife, and Casteel startles her, and he, like, takes the knife away, which is good. I'd be afraid to sleep with a knife in my bed. I think I would end up cutting myself. Like,
yeah.
I don't think it would go well for me.
Well, like, especially if you have a habit of, like, putting your hand under your pillow, you would slice your hand.
I knock my phone off the bed all the time if it's under my pillow. So, like, imagine if a knife was there.
Yeah. Just leave it in your bedside table.
Exactly. That's what I do now. So smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, Poppy kind of remembers her dream a bit, but it doesn't make sense. Like, her mother was bleeding from wounds and not bites. So there's, like, some things happening to her nightmares that, like, they aren't making sense anymore. Yeah. And we don't know if, like, she's remembering what actually happened or if she's, like, balling all of her trauma together and it's, like, a nightmare that isn't real. Interesting times.
I don't think I've ever, now I haven't been through a huge trauma, so maybe that's part of it. I don't think I've ever had a dream that was an exact replica of an event that happened in real life.
No, I haven't. And, like, I've had nightmares that were events, but then they also change. So, like, I think it would make sense that this wasn't real. But it's mentioned so much that I'm like, there's something here. Obviously, they're trying to give us something here. So. Yeah. Poppy apologizes for waking Casteel up again because she's been having nightmares often, especially since they're leaving early to get on the road. And she thinks of how awkward supper was. We didn't get the scene about supper, but she just thinks of, like, people were staring at her and whispering about her because she had healed people that day. Not healed. Sorry. She had taken away their pain.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. So then Poppy tries to go to sleep, but all she can think about is the nightmare. And, like, the mist looked like smoke, and the blood and bodies were around her, but there were no Craven eating them, which is weird, because, like, if there were Craven around, they'd obviously go for the free meal. Mm-hmm. And she's just, like, she can't get to sleep. She needs to get up. Like, she's not going to be able to get back to sleep after this. Because Casteel understands and he pleads with her to let him help her. And he says that they can pretend again, and then she kisses him. So, like, she kind of takes the reins here, which I appreciate. Yeah. Only, like, a bit. But then he pulls up her nightgown and uses his hands and teeth on her boobs. I'm like, those are probably really sharp.
Yeah.
Then he reaches down, and she's so wet for him. And
like, there was literally no foreplay, no kissing. He literally was at her boobs for, like, a second, and all of a sudden she's, like, gushing.
And, like, she's, like, recovering from a traumatic nightmare.
Yeah, it's
I need a bit more than...
Yeah. I also, like, he's like, oh, let me help you. Let me make it better. To me, this would not make it better. If I had woken up from the nightmare, I'd be like, don't touch me.
Yeah. I'd be like, you can maybe cuddle me, depending.
Yes! Cuddle me!
But I'd also be like, maybe I'll just go for a run or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is not...
I'd be like, I'll go for a coffee. Like, just... You go run, I'll coffee.
And yeah, so he starts fingering her, and she basically, like, starts riding his hand until she comes, and then he, like, pulls her into his arms and rubs her spine until she falls asleep, which is sweet. Like, that
part, yeah.
Sweet. But I'm like, and I guess, like, it's a distraction, but it seems oddly placed, and I get, like, they're not having a lot of sex, so the sexual tension is constant. Maybe I can buy that. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we figured it out.
We did. The next day they're leaving, and apparently they should be in Spessa's End by the end of the week. And Poppy can't stop thinking about, like, the nightmares and how they were weird, and, like, she's feeling kind of weird. And So they're out there the next day, and Elijah, I don't think he's a wolven.
I think he's just a human.
Yeah. He thanks Poppy for helping, and, like, taking away the pain yesterday, which she kind of appreciates because a lot of people have been pretty shitty. Mm-hmm. And he also congratulates her and Casteel and tells them that, like, if a woman fights this passionately, you'd want her by your side and in your bed.
I hate it.
So do I.
I hate it.
You don't need to comment about, ugh, gross.
And, like, just because a woman is a good fighter and is passionate, that does not have any reflection on her bedroom style.
Yeah.
And it's none of your business, Elijah.
Yeah. It's just so awkward.
Yeah.
But, like, we kind of get that, like, oh, some people do believe this engagement thing. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they go to the horses, and Casteel had a cloak made for her because her last one, a craven, died on it. And Delano, it actually is Nail, something like that.
Nail? Like the thing that you hammer? A nail?
Yeah.
Great. I love it.
Yeah. It's pronounced a tiny bit weirder. Nail. I don't know. When I was listening to the book, I was like, I don't know what this, I can't say this. But anyway, it's basically Nail. So Delano, Nail, and Kieran are traveling with them, and Elijah is staying to organize, like, the rest of the town to leave in small groups. So they're essentially evacuating the town because they know, like, the Ascended were just there. They killed them. So,
I mean, they are, like, they're still in Solace. Like, this is technically part of Solace. Like, yes. You know, it makes sense for them to need to get out now.
Yes, because, like, they killed so many, and other Ascended are going to come to try to figure out what happened to them. So everybody really needs to leave, because it's an entire town of dissenters, too. So, like, they all need to get out. So Elijah's basically organizing it, and he says, like, he's going to wait till the last group, and he'll go with them. But they are leaving in small groups, because they don't want to be obvious. So Casteel asks Poppy why she's so quiet, because she's just, like, completely in her head this morning, and she's not really talking, and she just says that she's tired, but he doesn't really believe her. Elijah notices Casteel help her onto the horse, and he tells him that Casteel should teach her how to ride, and she kind of thinks how helpful that'll be once she's free, like when she's no longer with Casteel. Being able to ride would be a good skill to have. Mm-hmm. But Casteel says he plans to teach her many things on an exceptionally long list, so she starts to think of, like, what these things could be. I don't know about you, but my mind immediately went dirty, because that's obviously what I was thinking he meant.
Ew!
But it kind of also, like, I can't say this word. Infantizes. What's that word? How do you say it? It, like, makes her seem like a baby. Infant. Yes. Word. Infantilizes, or however.
Okay. Infantilizes?
Is that a word? But I feel like, yeah, it makes, I don't know, it makes it seem like she doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is necessary, because it's not true. But Elijah tells Casteel to keep her safe, and he responds that he always does keep, like, what's his safe. He's basically saying that she's his.
Ugh.
Yes. And so as they leave, Poppy thinks about how they're going east now, and, like, there's no real turning back from their plan or escaping anymore. Like, this is it. If she goes with them now, she's gonna marry him. That is that.
Yeah.
And she also obviously tells him that she isn't his, which I appreciate.
Yeah. True that, man. Like, not even from our engagement isn't real standpoint, but just from I am my own person, dude. Like, just from that standpoint, I appreciate her being like, I don't belong to you. I belong to myself.
Yeah. I am a human. You
Yes.
can't own me.
Yes. You don't own me. You don't know that song? Oh my god. Did you never see The First Wives Club?
No.
Oh my god, it's an amazing movie. It came out in like the early 90s, I think. It has who's in it? Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, and I think it's Melanie Griffith. No, not Melanie Griffiths. Kate Hudson's mom. That actress. Yeah. Anyway, so the three of them are all like divorcees, and they open up this like club, and they call it the First Wives Club. And they, at the end, they sing this song like, "You don't own me, you don't own me, young and free, young and free, young and free, you don't own me." It's a really good song. It's a really cute movie. It's very like uplifting, like feminism, woman power. It's great.
Nice.
They all get revenge on their ex-husbands.
Love it. So, yeah, she says that she's not his, and then he asks for a piece of her, and he says, any will do.
Wink,
I think he
wink.
kind of makes he makes a sexual joke about it, too. And you're like, this is unnecessary. But she doesn't bite, and she kind of thinks, like, she's afraid he already owns too much of her, because she's falling in love with him.
Oh.
So he asks her why she's so quiet again, and he assumes it's because of their understanding, as she calls it. And after some convincing and a please, she admits that she doesn't know how to act to make people think that they're together. And he just tells her to act like herself. And he's like, arguing threats and all, like, it's better to act like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously he's in love with her too, so he's in love with who she is. So obviously her acting like that would help. But
yeah, well, I guess she's nervous that like her constantly threatening to stab him doesn't seem very lovey-dovey,
which is fair. But yeah, she also admits to him that like she's used to being the maiden, so when she's kind of unsure of herself, she reverts back to like that silence and not being spoken to or speaking, which completely makes sense. And like I appreciate that that's in there, because it is kind of surprising how outspoken she is based on having to live a completely silent life and not being able to talk back. Yeah. So I do like that this was in here. It does make me think that some of her outbursts are like, would she actually say any of this? But, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. He asks her about the Duke's lessons, and she says, like, after the first few, she learned to disassociate, basically. And she did what she had to survive, and that's why she didn't want to think about what the Ascended did and, like, their secrets. Yeah. Because that would also mean, like, looking at how she perpetuated their agenda. Right. And she kind of feels like she feels a lot of guilt about that, about never looking into what the Ascended, like, lied about.
Well, yeah, and I think last book, too, like, she mentions how, like, she literally thinks about how, like, well, geez, if the Duke and Lord Mazine are this awful and they're God's blessed, like, you know, who are the truly terrible people? Like, if these people are chosen by the gods as being worthy, like, who's not worthy? They must be really awful. So, like, she totally, like, she understood that these people were horrific people. But like what you said, diving into that and thinking more into that, she was already living such a terrible life anyway. Yeah. I feel like it would have, like, how would you get out of bed every day if you had to face what you were a part of?
Yes. Yeah. And, like, she wouldn't have been able to run away. It would have been even more depressing than her life already was. There's no... Yeah. Yeah. She was already doing her best to survive. It's hard. You can't add more to that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So he kind of tells her, like, she's making a change now by having left them. Like, she's dismantling the system now of the Ascended. And she kind of asks if that's enough. And he brings up Victor, and he asks if she blames Victor, for all the ways that he ended up failing her. But she completely defends him and says, like, he did all of that he could, which we've talked about. He didn't. And he also apologized, like, with his dying breath for the things that he couldn't do. And, like, I understand what she's saying. Like, if he hadn't done anything, he probably would have been taken away from her, and it would have made her life worse. But, like, there are still some things that he could have done better.
Yeah.
We had a whole rant about it last time.
We did.
He tells her she should see herself the same way and, like, give herself some forgiveness, basically, which is true. And that now they have a common people. Camel? Now they have a camel. It's like a camel, but it's a camel. Now they have a common people to blame in both cases. Obviously, the Ascended. And she agrees with that. She also says she guesses she should have pulled a knife on him this morning in the hall. If that's what'll make people believe in their agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells her that this is more personal than just an agreement. And she disagrees with him, but then he starts rubbing her through her pants, and you're like, whoa, this just took a turn.
I'm sorry, the poor horse.
Getting so wet.
Oh, God.
Oh my. And he says, like, last night didn't seem very impersonal either, which I think is kind of a dick move, because, like, they agreed that was pretending. That wasn't real life.
Also, he, like, begged her for that. He was like, please, just let me take it away. Like, please. Let me help you. So, like, she was doing you a favor, pal.
Right? So she ends up elbowing him in the stomach, also on a horse. I think Delano yells at them not to have a fight on a horse, which you're like, yes, really though. Please, this is not reasonable.
Yeah.
But he's just happy, like, she's back to herself now. And he also tells her, like, people who are getting, or, like, going to get married and are, like, in love are passionate in everything they do. And, like, they fight and they make up, and all relationships are different. And maybe, like, the punching and stabbing isn't great. And, like, when and if she leaves, I think he says, if she leaves, and she's like, wait, what do you mean? And he's like, I mean when.
Yeah.
She leaves him. She should find a mate where, like, that isn't the norm. Like, they aren't actually punching and stabbing each other all the time.
What?
And that it's just kisses and promises upheld, because, like, obviously he didn't uphold his promises. And he says that's what she deserves, and not, like, what she gets from him. So he has a bit of shit going on too. But she kind of just feels weird having him talk about her with someone else so easily. And you're like, that's what you're taking out of this? Like, he just feels like he's too shitty to be with you. That's, like, clearly what he's saying here. But she asks him about being in love before, because he had said last book, I think, that he was. And she asks, like, what happened, and he just says that she's gone, and she feels his pain like a wave, and she kind of realizes that, like, his constant pain and grief isn't just for his brother, it's also this woman he loved. And she kind of thinks, like, I guess he told her that he lost his brother, and then a few years later his best friend, which, was it even a few years later? I don't understand that.
I don't either.
But it makes him wonder if the best friend was this Shay woman that she heard about from Alistair, which is Alistair's daughter.
Yep. Sounds right.
It could easily be. So she goes to take his pain away, but he asks her not to, because It's a reminder for him. Which is kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Unnecessary. Like, take my pain away, please. I'd love to be happy. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god, can you imagine if somebody could, like, just with a touch just take away your anxiety?
Please.
I would be a completely different person.
This podcast would be over. We'd leave our houses. Doubt it.
Yeah. I'd spend time outside. You know. Just be living my best life. Yeah.
Anyway. She, back into this conversation. So she asks if this person that he loved died because of the Ascended, and he says that everything bad in his life happened because of the Ascended, and she's kind of just like, but I'm tied to the Ascended, and
he doesn't respond
for like days.
I know.
It's wild. I'm like, this is why she doesn't think you like her, you absolute ass. Like, it's too long. It's so awkward.
Yeah. Like, yeah. It's wild.
Yeah. She starts to kind of think about, like, the only other thing that the Ascended have left to take from him is his life, because they've literally taken everything else. And that really starts to affect her. And
I mean, Kieran, his parents, his kingdom. Yeah. Like,
there's more stuff.
There's a ton of stuff.
This is where her brain went. She's like, him dying, that would make me sad. Wait, one day I'm gonna leave, and then I'm gonna be sad anyway. And you're like, I guess, yeah, her leaving is kind of like him dying. In that, like, they won't be able to talk to each other anymore because there's no cell phones, but, like,
send him a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, he'll still be alive. It'll almost probably be worse because then he'll, like, actually fall in love with someone else, and then her heart will be doubly broken.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And, like, can you imagine if they cross paths and, like, that awkward phase when you run into an ex and, like, they're with their new girlfriend or wife and family, and it's like...
And they're so happy, and she's gonna be depressed and still sad.
Yeah.
That's what she's picturing right now. Mm-hmm. For 3 days while he doesn't talk to her and they travel. It's so weird.
I wouldn't be able to take the silence.
No.
I'd be like, talk to me!
Talk about something else.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're sitting on one horse every day.
Yeah.
During this. And they sleep holding each other for warmth because it's cold.
Yeah. Like,
No,
I wouldn't. I literally would be like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? Can you talk to me, please?
Are we there yet?
If that would get a reaction, I would go there.
Yeah. So she has her nightmares every night, and they're different, and she doesn't understand them. So obviously her mother's wounds, the rhyme, the smoke and not the fog. Like, there's a lot of signs here that I'm assuming it's gonna come up eventually. Mm-hmm. But he, like, wakes her up each night, and, like, before she can scream and, like, get predators towards them, which is So
I cannot imagine a predator coming towards a scream. Like, if an animal predator now.
Yeah. Speaking of non-animal predators, which are still animals though, but are also human. They're going through the woods one day, and she notices rope symbols that look like the rocks in the Blood Forest in the last book. And if you'll remember the last book, I was talking about this, and I was like, I don't think this ever comes back up. And it's so weird. Anyway, it comes back up. I just forgot about it. But there's ropes, and they're, like, in a circle, and then there's a line through it. I don't know which way the line is, but they get close enough, and there's a lot of these around, but the line is actually made with a bone. So
amazing.
It's a rope and a bone, and, like, the other ones were made in the shapes of rocks. But
How can you be made in the
Casteel-
shape of a rock?
Like, they use rocks to make the shape of it.
Oh,
like,
okay.
A circle with a line through it. Yes,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
They didn't, like, carve out a rock. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that was confusing. Which is just me today.
No, I was thinking that they, like, made a rope and bone into the shape of a rock. And I'm like,
I
what's it?
was talking about the one in the blood forest.
I'm like, what's the shape of a rock? Like, rocks are all different shapes.
That's very true. What's the shape of a rock? So, obviously, Casteel and Kieran have noticed these two, and Casteel gives her a crossbow, and he tells her that this is apparently the Dead Bones clan, and they are people that live outside of the walls and, like, aren't under the Ascendant's control. And most of them live in this area, but they used to live in the Blood Forest and in other places, but they've kind of come here. So it's just interesting that there are people that aren't under the Ascendant's rule that are living out here, but also they're very clearly something, which we'll get to in a short while. But he tells her that they kill anyone they see as a threat, and usually they end up avoiding them when they're going through these woods, but obviously not today, and they are attacked. I kind of assume that these guys come up again because it just seems weird that this is, like, sprinkled in the two books and there's an attack here. Like, there has to be something else to this, but I'm not asking for spoilers, so I'm gonna stop talking. So they're, like, firing arrows at them, and Casteel is hit, and he's thrown off the horse, and, like, he already has 2 arrows in his back from that. Like, he was just shot twice. But he's, like, completely fine and gets back up. Obviously, Poppy can't control the horse because she doesn't know how to ride a horse, and the horse is spooked. So she gets thrown off, and then Delano grabs her horse and, like, jumps on it while holding his own and brings them both into the woods. And then, like, Kieran follows him in his wolven form, and Casteel pulls Poppy after them. Casteel gets shot again and says it's getting annoying. And then he catches an arrow in his hand, which is, like, such a hot move. I don't care. It's not possible. I just love it.
Love it.
And he tells the people shooting at them that it's not their lucky day since they've ruined his cloak. And that kind of, like, snaps Poppy out of it. She was kind of, like, overwhelmed and, like, worried about Casteel because he was shot 3 times. But now she's like, oh, he's making jokes. He's probably fine. So she starts aiming her crossbow and shooting, and Casteel's, like, jumping from tree to tree and grabbing them and throwing them down to Delano, who's in wolven form and is basically just killing them.
Love it.
So they're starting to kill them all. Poppy ends up being grazed by an arrow in the arm, and then she fires at someone, and then someone with a mask is running towards her, and she doesn't really have enough time to get an arrow in the crossbow and up to, like, shoot him before he comes over and knocks the crossbow out of her hands with a club. His mask is made of skin, so they kill people and then they eat them and they also use their skin. It's something.
I mean, it's resourceful. No waste. It's nose to tail. It's nose to tail cooking.
It's true. He also.
I just want to add that neither of us condone cannibalism. We're just joking. That was a joke. We're not. We don't actually think you should kill people, eat them, and then use their skin.
You should use every piece of the body. Jesus. Which makes this part even worse, now that we've said that. Because this dead bones man person makes a very unnecessary joke, in my opinion, about her sucking his dick. And I need this. I know he's a bad person because he's going to kill them.
Yeah.
I need him to be, like,
sexist on top of it, yeah.
And then he says, like, her face is a mess, but her mouth looks just fine. Like, that's not, I hate it. But, like, it clearly pisses her off, which I guess
Is it commentary on on society, on how women are perceived?
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't need it.
No, I know. I agree with you. We already think they're monsters. Because you kill people, eat them, and wear their faces.
Yes. So she ends up grabbing her knife, because it's, I think, still on her thigh, and he keeps asking what kind of bitch she is, because, like, obviously he's seen the Wolven, and he knows that Casteel is Atlantean because he's not dying.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wondering, like, if she's actually mortal, or, like, what's going on
with
her. And she just stabs him, like, up into his chin, like...
vertically, yeah.
Face. Yeah. And says, I'm this kind of bitch.
I love it!
Dies. I know, me too. I love it. But he dies and lands right on top of her, which is awful. She's, like, starting to push him off, but Casteel comes over and pulls him off. And he's very worried about Poppy being injured, but she's more worried about, like, the 3+ arrows that are still sticking out of him.
But, like, also, he still hasn't spoken to her for 3 days.
Yeah, it's so weird. But he ends up tearing a piece of his cloak to cover her wound so that it doesn't get infected, and, like, he obviously can't get infections. But he also just, like, stands there and is looking at her and looking at her wound, and his pupils are giant, and he's just not binding the wound. And she's like, what is happening? Kieran then comes over and, like, what's going on? And, like, Poppy looks over at him and is shocked. Because he's naked.
I love that part so much.
She's, like, full-on scandalized by it. She's like, why are you naked? And he's like, I changed into a Wolven? Like, what do you want from me? But Cass starts, like, getting back to himself again, and he, like, pulls his arrows out of himself, which is gross and painful. But he needs to take them out to heal.
Yeah.
And they basically start their journey on again, and when the coast kind of seems clear and, like, they don't fear for their lives anymore, Poppy starts to ask about the Dead Bones clan and, like, why they would attack them. Like, they're not craven, like, why are they being attacked? But they kind of say that, like, they attacked anybody that comes around them, and they were likely hungry. And someone makes a comment that they probably wanted a cloak out of the Wolven's fur, which is not surprising. Pretty gross, sure, but, like...
Well, I mean, I guess if they wear people's faces, if they wear skin on their face, I guess it's not much of a stretch to want to skin the person as a wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Poppy starts to kind of fall asleep in Casteel's arms, and she asks him if it bothers him to be so close to someone who represents the Ascended. And he says he would do anything for his brother, and that she's also part Atlantean, so that helps. But, so she's clearly, it's been 3 days since the comment that she, like, came from these. She's been stewing about that since then.
Yes.
Because he didn't say anything. And now she's, like, falling asleep leaned against him, and she's like, sorry that I represent the Ascended. Like, how can you be near me? I hate myself, basically. Yeah. It's been 3 days of this, and you haven't said anything. And he's just like, I'd do anything for my brother. Which has nothing to do with her.
But, like, but that just insinuates I would get as close to you as possible for my brother.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's like,
I am repulsed by you, but I'm doing this for my brother. Like,
exactly.
That is not what you say to comfort someone.
No, and you're like, of course there's a miscommunication trope in this book, because he's being such an ass here.
Yeah.
But,
like this,
he does say, oh, she's part Atlantean, so that helps. But you're like, that dismisses everything about her. How do you not see that?
Yeah.
Like, this is so wild.
But, like, also, I find, too, that, like, this is not miscommunication. Like, to me, this is him admitting he finds her repulsive.
Yes. Yeah. This part isn't miscommunication, but, like, the whole...
Yes, I understand what you're saying. The whole book is based on them not telling each other how they feel.
But, like, this makes it 100% seem like he hates her.
Yes!
And is repulsed by her.
Yes!
And I completely understand why she's like, yes, I'm falling in love with him and he hates me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he fucking does. He just said he's repulsed by you.
Yeah.
He'd get close to anybody to save his brother.
Including you. Like.
Piece of scum. Like. You're disgusting. Run away. Like, what the fuck? This is great. So the next day, they get to what's called Stygian Bay, and it's apparently the gateway to the temples of eternity, and it's where Rain, one of the gods, sleeps below its surface. Which, because they say all the gods are asleep right now, so Rain is apparently sleeping at the bottom of this lake, below its surface.
Get it, Rain.
That's good.
I did I know you guys can't see me, but like I did like I don't even know what to call it. Like raindrops.
Rain fingers?
Yes.
I like it. Yeah. Also, this is where what they call Pompeii is. But it's spelled a little differently, like everything else in this book is spelled a little differently to make it hard to type it, because autocorrect. But Pompeii is apparently the last Atlantean stronghold, and it's like the town that they're going to get to next. And Casteel tells her that no Ascended wanted to rule this far east, so like they ended up burning down all of Pompeii and Spessa's End to the ground, and they fed on every mortal living in those places, so like they either died or became craven. He says like him and his men buried all 656 of them after they were just left out wherever they had died to.
Can I just say that like so the Atlantia is a play on Atlantis, Lost City. Pompeii is the Italian city of Pompeii, which is also like an abandoned, like ruined city, like covered in lava. So it's just interesting how JLA is taking like these names of these like famously like these sort of like these famous cities that are no longer inhabited, obviously, and then like repurposing them. I like it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no, I get the parallels. It's just when you're typing them, you're like, why is this?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it's you can see why she did it for sure. Yeah. So it's gonna sound terrible, but I don't really understand. After everything she's heard, she's still super shocked by like them like killing everybody here and ruining the places because nobody wanted to rule this far east. And it's just like, I'm not surprised. I don't really understand why she's so surprised. I think it's maybe like finally seeing with your eyes the proof of it and like the graves and stuff. Like I think that's what might get her. But it doesn't sound surprising to me that they did this after everything we learned.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. I'm not shocked
she's, like,
either.
Super shocked by the atrocities, and it's just interesting because I'm like, I guess it's kind of like the nail that finally had to hit it all home, maybe, because like she lived her whole life thinking one thing. So,
but like I also love that doesn't like Delano or Nail or somebody say like I'm glad that I'm still shocked by this because like it means I'm not like them.
Yes.
So, like, yeah, when you become numb to the violence, like, that is when it becomes a problem.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously, if I were to see something like that in person, I would not be shocked. It's also a book, so it's completely different. I'm not saying, like, I wouldn't be shocked by atrocities like that. I'm just saying it's not surprising once you learn all the stuff you do about them, like, stealing children and stuff, that they would just be like, we don't want to rule there. Let's kill everybody.
Yeah.
Pompeii and Spessa's End are like far enough east that like the normal citizens of Solus won't end up there, and like they would never stumble upon the destruction or, according to Nail, the rebuilding that's happening as well. So like nobody ever comes out here, which is, I guess, ideal. they end up getting to Spessa's End, and an overexcited young woman named Beckett and a young Atlantean boy named Quentin meet them, and Casteel introduces her to them as his fiance. And Casteel and Kieran are surprised that there are young people there. So I guess normally he says there's about 100 of them there, and they're normally older and trained Atlanteans that have moved here because they need them to be ready in case the Ascendants do come there and attack them. They want trained Atlanteans to be there. And it's odd to have somebody so young. But he says that they're going through the culling, have recently gone through the culling, and you're like, Poppy's going through the culling. So these young kids are likely Poppy's age or older.
But it's funny though, because later on in this section, not this section, but I think in the next section, maybe even the last one, I 100% remember, I don't know if it's Kieran or if it's Poppy just thinking it to herself. Oh, it's Kieran that tells her, I think, that Wolven, so I don't know about Quentin, because I don't know if I think Quentin is just Atlantean, right? He's not Wolven?
Yeah.
So, but Beckett is way older than Poppy. Because it says Wolven age very, very slowly. It takes 30, 40 years for them to reach adulthood, we'll say. So maybe he just went through the culling, but he's still very much a child.
Okay, that makes some sense.
So he's way older. So but if you're going through the culling at 19 and they're saying he's just going through the culling, then he would be Poppy. So I don't know if that's a continuity thing or if maybe they just didn't explicitly say that Beckett.
Do Wolven go through the culling?
I have no idea.
I guess that's the other question. Maybe they're just talking about Quentin is going through his culling.
Maybe. So he's 19.
Yeah, so he's Poppy's age.
Oh.
But
it's weird because he seems
during this book,
he seems a little, not in charge, but kind of in charge? A little bit, to me?
He just seemed very young to me. He's leading them to their room and super excited. And
I guess.
Just he seems young to me. And you're they're talking about how young they are, and they're surprised young people are there. And you're does Casteel realize that Poppy is also that same age? She's also a baby. Are we overlooking this? I think Casteel might be overlooking this.
Yeah. Also, do you love it when the main character guy is 200 years old and the girl is 19?
It's my favorite. My favorite trope ever.
It's not as bad as ACOTAR, though.
No.
Because Reese is 600, 500 maybe.
It's something, man. It's something.
Still my favorite book.
Well, it's the same. It's all of them are
Oh, yeah! You're right.
Even
TOG is it, too.
Even CC is it.
Is it?
She's older, but he's, hundreds of years old.
Right.
Maybe not hundreds.
Do you know what I think it is? I think by the time dudes mature, to match with a female's maturity, that's how old they need to be.
Hundreds.
Hundreds of years old.
Fair. I'll buy that. So Quentin brings them to some beautiful rooms, and they talk about showers, which are a thing in Atlantia, but not in Solus. So there are no showers here. But when they get to Atlantia, she'll be able to have a shower. It's something she doesn't believe is real.
Yeah. I like how he explains it, though. He's it's a warm rain that comes from the top of the ceiling. And I'm yeah, it's about right.
It is about right. It can also be cold if you want.
Yeah, that's true.
So Casteel then checks her wounds and then just runs away from her basically. And you're wait, what is happening? You don't want her to think that she hates you?
Yeah.
So she just cleans herself and goes to bed, and she's thinking about all of the graves and how shitty the Ascended are, and she's really starting to process it all for real, I think. Because, like, there's been a lot of change in the last little while. But she falls asleep, and I kind of hate this trope, too. She wakes up on the hard bed. And she's like, I don't remember the bed being this hard when I fell asleep. It was comfortable. Why is the bed so hard now? Like, you know it's a body. Beds don't feel like bodies. And then she's like, and the bed is wrapped around me. Beds don't wrap around you. Anyway, the bed also has its hand on her bare thigh. No, I don't think she actually said that. But obviously Casteel is what she's lying on.
Yeah.
And he has his hand on her bare thigh. And this has caused, like, the robe she's wearing to, like, open on the bottom. And she's not wearing anything underneath.
Yeah. She had to wear a bathrobe to bed.
Yes, she has no clothes.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
She could have just been naked. It would have been fine.
Yeah.
But okay. And so his thigh is pressed, like, right up into her apex, as we like to call
Just
it.
call it a clitoris and move on.
And she's, like, super turned on, but she's just thinking of him as Hawk in this moment, and she thinks of all the ways he has and he can pleasure her.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, this is getting intense. But she's just watching him sleep, and she's, like, wondering at his beauty and how she didn't notice that he wasn't mortal, because, like, mortals don't look as beautiful as he does. And she kind of wonders if, like, he can even find her attractive at all, because, like, which is super real.
Valid!
100%. She's mortal. She's been told her entire life how ugly she is because of her scars, and how she would have been so beautiful if she didn't have the scars. So, like, obviously she is insecure. I'm surprised this hasn't come up way before it. Really.
Plus, he essentially told her he finds her awful and hates the fact that she's associates with the Ascended. Like,
right? Like, it's... Yeah.
I'm surprised she can manage this much.
Yeah. Like, yeah. You just feel so disgusted about yourself that you'd be like, I can't be turned on anymore because I'm such a lump. But she thinks of the night in the forest when he, like, got her off, and how he didn't want any pleasure himself. And she knows it's because there's no way he can ever want her back. And that's sad. I understand why she feels that way. So she tries to move away from him to, like, fix her robe and make herself clothed. But her moving wakes him up, and he rolls her under him and puts a hand on her throat. And his pupils are, like, so dilated that you can barely see any color at all. And he, like, growls at her, and she's like, what the fuck is going on? Mm-hmm. He's very clearly not himself.
Yeah.
She tries to fight him off and, like, a hold on her neck, but he pins her arm, and he like, visibly smells her, and then he starts to, like, move down her body and growls again.
So, like, do we think that, like, she was turned on earlier, and so then he smelled that she was turned on?
100%.
And then, so instead of the angry, we get the sensual,
Yes, that's what we get. So she gets the dagger that's under her pillow now, and she puts it to his throat, and he stills, but she says that, like, he's still looking at her like she's prey, and he's gonna devour her. And she reaches out with her, like, power, and she can just feel that he is starving. And, like, she kind of relates, because, like, she's gone days without eating because the Duke was punishing her, and she knows that starving feeling, and it's, like, it's bad, but she can also tell that he's also horny.
Woo!
And she remembers that Atlanteans need Atlantean blood, because this is what they talked about. Like, that's likely why the Ascended want her, because she has Atlantean blood. And she doesn't know how often that Casteel has fed. And, like, he fed a bit from her a few days ago, so she says a few days, and I'm like, well, it took you, like, almost a week to get here, and it was before that, so it's at least a weekish ago. So it's a while. But Casteel was stopped there because of the knife at his throat, but then, like, she isn't doing anything, so he just starts to go lower, and she says her hand spasms on the knife, and she drops it, like, as he starts to basically eat her out. And she says he's ravenous and quick, whereas, like, last time he was gentle and, like, whatever.
He built her up slowly and gradually.
Yeah. And she comes with a scream, of course. And then the terrace doors fly open, and Kieran bursts in saying that he heard the scream, but then he realizes it wasn't like that kind of scream. But then Casteel turns to him and growls, and he's like, oh, wait.
It kind of is.
Yeah. And Kieran tells Casteel that he warned him that this would happen. And you're like, what would happen? What's going on?
That he would give her, like, a mind-altering climax that causes her to scream the house down? He warned him that would happen?
He did warn him that would happen. Then Kieran tells Poppy to get ready to run, but she can feel, obviously, Casteel's emotions, and she's worried because, like, she can feel that he's going to
attack
Kieran, and he wants to kill him at this moment. And the only thing she can think to do is, like, push her happy feelings into him, like she does when she's kind of, like, taking pain away. And she does that and tells him that it's okay. And his body jerks, and Poppy can feel his emotions start to change, and, like, his regular sadness comes back, and his like, overwhelming shame comes back. And his eyes start to look amber again, and he looks her in the eyes. And he says, honeydew. Sir, this is not the time! Like, this is super problematic. You just did this basically against her will. There was no consent. It's against his will, likely, because, like, he wasn't even in the right state either. Like, this is so wrong on so many different levels. And then he says sorry, covers her body up, and just walks out the terrace door. And that's it. That's where we end.
I can't stop. Like, this is just so cringy.
I can't.
Like, guys, if anyone doesn't know, there's a really big thing about honeydew in the fandom, right? So, like, people take pictures of the book with honeydew, of themselves with. I know you did.
For our Instagram, I did take a picture with honeydew in the first book.
But it wasn't problematic in the first book either, right? Because he just ate her out normally and then was like, you taste like honeydew, which is still problematic, but, like...
It's just like, why?
Yeah.
Why did we have to ruin honeydew for this?
And also, like, real women, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't have a ton of experience. I don't really know what women taste like, but I feel like I can...
honeydew.
Yeah, I feel like I can safely say we don't taste like honeydew.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, maybe a little bit more realism.
Yeah. I know I kind of went on a rant on it in the first book, because I'm like, it's perpetuating this, like, thing that women need to smell and taste good, when, like...
Men don't.
Where's that about men?
Yeah.
And, like, it's not about how you taste or smell anyway, it's about the pleasure, so, like, why can't that be the focus? Why do we have to go off on this honeydew thing? Also, that was inappropriate of him. Like, did he just... I wonder. Like, he doesn't black out, I don't think, when he's in
No, I wouldn't say.
Because, like, I could see if he blacked out in that state, came back to himself, and then he was like,
I taste honeydew on my tongue.
I taste honeydew. That would be like, oh shit, I clearly did something.
Yeah.
Like, I could understand that.
Yes.
But this is like, do you need to tell Kieran that she tastes like honeydew? Is that really? Do we need to do that right now? That's embarrassing.
I mean, I feel like we're already peak embarrassment anyway, just for the fact that, like, he walked in on her, like, post, like, very, very post-climax.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine, like, your significant other...
Out.
Yes! He's still down there!
Yeah.
Like, nosing around! Now, like, yeah, it is, like, I would, oh my god, words. I would say that the consent is sketchy on both sides for this.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't say, like, because she actually reiterates next week that, like, if she didn't want it to have happened, it would not have happened.
Which I appreciate her thinking, but also, he can overpower her in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that is true. If he were actually gone, like, if he couldn't come back from it, if he wanted to and she didn't want to, there is nothing she could have done because he's an Atlantean and so much stronger.
Yeah.
I appreciate her thinking and thinking that, I guess, but it's not physically possible for her to stop him.
No.
So I don't think that we can hang everything on that. And I think that's an issue with, like, consent in the writing. And I understand that the author is trying to be like, it's fine, but it is rapey.
Yeah. And then, too, like, his whole, like, the fact, it almost makes it seem like, I don't know, like, he's, like, in his alpha male, like primitive state. And, yeah, I don't know, like, just, it's like,
it's not, yeah. Which is, like, not to say anything, like, I read books that have consent issues, and I enjoy them. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with writing like that. But it just feels like we're trying to say that there was consent here when I don't think there is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an issue for who knows. Nothing. I don't know.
Let us know what you guys think. Send us a message on Facebook or Instagram and tell us, like, do you think that was consent problematic? Or do you think it's fine?
Reading too much into it.
Yeah. Did it just get y'all hot and bothered? We don't actually need to know that if you don't want to tell us. That might be a TMI question.
Yeah.
But still, like, let us know.
Let us know whatever you want to let us know.
Yeah. Go as far as you... Okay, no, maybe don't go as far as you want. But you know what I'm saying.
Yes, we don't need to know. So, that wraps it up for this week. If you do want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at coffeeandcoread.
So next week we will be reading chapters 23 to 34 of A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So, or I like to call it AKOFAF. Make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.